How's it going, folks? You're very welcome to today's lesson. We're on a brand new topic now this week. We're talking about glaciers. So we would have mentioned what glaciers were in the previous topic. Now we're going to focus particularly on glaciers, okay? So a glacier, guys, as we know, is a large sheet of ice. So look at the picture there to the right of the slide. That is a glacier. It's a large wall or sheet of ice, okay? And there are glaciers around the world today in places like the North Pole and north of Canada, in Greenland, in Iceland. But there used to be glaciers in places like Ireland as well. And those glaciers would have moved across Ireland. And as they moved across Ireland and Europe as well, they would have shaped Ireland's landscape. And we're going to look at how glaciers have done this, okay? So the Earth's climate went through periods when it was a lot colder than it is today, okay? So the climate changes all the time, guys, okay? So, you know, I know we're going through climate change now, but climate has always changed. And it used to be a lot colder. Like, there was ice ages over the last hundreds of thousands of years where, you know, it was icy all year round. There was no summers, okay? Over long periods of time, snow has built up in layers, okay? The layers of snow were compressed and formed glacier ice called firn ice. Now, you might think, okay, it snows. Why did the snow not melt? Well, guys, this is back at a time during an ice age, and Ireland was a very cold place, and the world was a very cold place, and there was no summer. Okay, so the temperature was always below freezing. So when it snowed, the snow would stay there. It would not melt. Okay, and over time, if you look at the picture on the right-hand side there, that glacier is made up of layers and layers and layers of snow that got compressed and squashed together over time. And over time, this forms a glacier called firn ice, F-I-R-N ice. As a result of this, a large ice sheet or glacier moved across Europe and covered most of Ireland. The only part of Ireland that escaped ice was a narrow stretch of land from Munster across to southern Wicklow. Okay, so to recap, guys, what is a glacier? A glacier is a large slab of ice. How did it get there? It got there when layers of snow got compressed on top of one another, eventually forming firn ice. Okay, now why did the snow not melt? Well, guys, remember, this is back when the world's climate was different. Back when the climate was not, there was no summer. It was always below freezing all year round. Okay. So, for example, 12,000 years ago, as ice sheet melted, mountain valleys in Ireland were left with smaller rivers of ice called valley glaciers. Okay, so in Ireland, guys, okay, basically what a valley glacier is an ice glacier that's a bit smaller on a valley, on a valley, right? And when this glacier moves down this valley, what's it do? It's going to erode the landscape. Guys, remember, these glaciers are huge. These glaciers are very, very big, very, very heavy. And in Ireland, when these glaciers move across the mountains, they're going to, because they're so heavy, they're going to break the rock and erode the rock, okay? And this has influenced the landscape in Ireland. It's helped to shape Ireland's landscape, and it's also moved sediment. So, for example, when the glacier moves, it breaks off bits of sediment off the mountain and it transports that sediment elsewhere, okay? Now, when these glacier valleys finally melted, they deposited or dropped their sediment on the landscape, okay? So, for example, Greenland and the Antarctica are still covered with ice sheets, and valley glaciers can be found in certain areas to this day still in the Alps and in the Himalayas, okay? So, you know, the world has not got rid of these valley glaciers and these firn glaciers. Now, what might get rid of them is, for example, global warming. If global warming continues to happen at the rate it's happening. But for now, in parts of the world that are close to the North Pole and up in high areas, there are still glaciers available, okay? So we just mentioned there how when glaciers moved across Ireland, they eroded Ireland's landscape. And there are two main ways that glaciers erode, okay? And these are by plucking and by abrasion, okay? And the first one, plucking, really simply, guys, is if you look at the picture here, okay? So look at this picture. As the ice moves down the mountain, it literally plucks bits of rock off the landscape. Okay, very, very straightforward. Let's say, so as the ice is moving, it's plucking bits of rock off the landscape. The second type of glacial erosion is abrasion. And abrasion, guys, is basically like sandpaper. It's the effect, if you run sandpaper over a piece of wood, okay, the sandpaper is going to grind against that wood and pull bits, small, tiny bits of wood away, okay? That's what happens here. So as the ice moves, abrasion, it acts as sandpaper and it grinds small bits of rocks off the landscape, and as a result it leaves scratches on the rock called striations, okay? Again, guys, sandpaper. If you got sandpaper and move it over your hand, it feels rough. It feels uncomfortable. Okay, that sandpaper is not smooth. The same way the ice is not smooth and the rock is not smooth, so they grind off each other. And the ice is big and it's heavy, and it can grind off bits of rock during abrasion. Okay, so if you look at these in more detail, guys, plucking is the removal of rock from the ground by ice. As you know, these glaciers, guys, are very big, so the weight of the glacier crushes the ground underneath and forms cracks. Okay, so the weight alone of the glacier can cause the ground to crack. And when the ice moves, there is friction. And this creates heat so when the ice here moves, it creates heat in this area here. Okay, again, if you rub your hands together, that generates heat because there's friction. The same thing happens here. And as a result, the ice melts. And what the ice does is the ice will seep into these small little cracks here. Okay, and when the ice seeps in here, the water will freeze again. Okay, and when this frozen water or ice moves on, it plucks the bits of rock away. Okay, very straightforward. Abrasion, very simple, when chunks of rock are pulled from the ground and carried along the base of the glacier. So again, as we've already said, the ice literally acts like sandpaper and just moves and basically pulls bits of rock from the mountain. Okay, very, very straightforward. Now, as well as erosion, glaciers can transport the load. So you look at here, right? This glacier is after pulling bits of rock here via plucking and bits of rock here via abrasion. Now, what does it do? How does it transport those bits of rocks? Well, there are four main ways it transports rocks. Okay, so glaciers transport unsorted rocks in long ridges called moraines. Okay, so the ridges of rock called moraines are in glaciers. Okay, and as the glacier moves, it brings these moraines with them. Very, very straightforward. Okay, so think of a moraine as like a bundle of rocks. Okay, and there are four different types of moraines. Okay, very, very straightforward. So we have a ground moraine. All right, number one here. And a ground moraine is when rock gets transported. So think of it's a basket of rocks being transported by the glacier. So the arrows here show the direction of glacier movement. And at the bottom, we've got a ground moraine. So the rocks are being transported on the ground, on the bottom part of the glacier. And that's your ground moraine, okay? Number two is your terminal moraine. And this is where rocks are transported at the front of the glacier or the end of the glacier. So the word terminal means end. And here we got a terminal moraine. So a group of rocks being transported at the front of our glacier. Okay. Number three is our lateral moraine. Okay. And this is where glaciers get, like lateral means sides. Okay. And this is where glaciers transport rocks at their sides. Okay. So along here. And then we've got medial moraines, and the word medial means middle. So this is where glaciers transport their rocks in the middle of the glacier. Okay, very, very straightforward. Okay, that's it, folks. Thank you very much for watching.